Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. The NFL postseason starts this Saturday, so these are my NFL playoff predictions. This is an interesting wild card weekend because every single matchup is a rematch, meaning every single team has played the other team before this season, which means that we sort of get an idea of how these matches could turn out, but you never know. It's the NFL. Starting off in the AFC East, I have to pick the Bills. The Dolphins have been lagging as of late, and Tua is out this weekend, which means that it will likely be Teddy Bridgewater versus Josh Allen and the Bills. I cannot go against the Bills in this matchup. Another divisional matchup, and this one could be interesting. Although we just finished seeing this matchup a couple days ago. The Bengals and Ravens are two very competitive teams. And I'll be honest, I would normally pick the Ravens over the Bengals. Honestly, I think the Ravens have a better core, better roster, better coaching, honestly. The one thing the Ravens lack that the Bengals definitely have is receivers. The Ravens have no one for Lamar Jackson to throw to except for tight end Mark Andrews. Meanwhile, the Bengals have everyone for Joe Burrow to throw to. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, and most of all, Jamar Chase. I'm going to go the Bengals here by just a hair, mostly because Lamar Jackson is questionable again this week. And even if he can return, he hasn't played in a couple of weeks, so we don't exactly know. He might be playing a bit injured, and he hasn't practiced that much, so he might be a little bit out of practice, out of shape, which could give the Bengals an advantage. As well as the fact that if the secondary can lock up Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson just has to run it. Interestingly enough, the Chargers actually lost to the Jaguars earlier this season. They absolutely blew it. It wasn't even close. Now, Justin Herbert was playing injured, and half the team was injured for the Chargers, which gave the Jaguars an automatic advantage. But at the same time, Jaguars weren't even nearly as good as they are now back then. They were still developing. Now Trevor Lawrence is truly looking like a good quarterback. And the Chargers are still haunted by injuries. But I have to pick the Chargers here because I don't think the Jaguars are that great yet. In a couple of years, sure, the Jaguars could legitimately be in contention for one of the best teams in the AFC. But at this point in time, the Jaguars are still a young developing team, while I think the Chargers definitely have a better core. Although both of these quarterbacks are first-time quarterbacks in the playoffs, Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. And Brandon Staley is a relatively new coach and has not been a head coach in the playoffs before. Although Doug Peterson definitely has that playoff experience. So that might be the one thing that gives the Jaguars the edge. In the NFC, I have to pick the 49ers over the Seahawks, despite the fact that they're starting on Mr. Irrelevant at quarterback. I don't think the Seahawks played that well down the stretch. I don't think they're that great of a team. In fact, I'm disappointed that the Lions couldn't make the playoffs because given how they played, they definitely deserve it. If it wasn't for the Lions, the Packers would have won that game. They didn't play absolutely awful. I bet you if the Packers were playing the Seahawks, in that game, the Packers would have won and made the playoffs over the Seahawks. So I feel kind of bad for Dan Campbell's squad, and I don't think the Seahawks are going to be able to make it past that 49ers defense. I have got to pick the Vikings here because I just still don't trust the Giants. I think they had a rather easy schedule throughout the year. I don't love Daniel Jones. I don't think he's awful. I don't think he's as bad as he was this time last year. but I don't think he's a great quarterback. I don't think Kirk Cousins is great either, but he can still play well enough, especially with superstar receiver Justin Jefferson, something the Giants should be jealous of because they do not have a single receiver on their team. They do have Saquon Barkley, a superstar running back, but the Vikings have a really, really good running back in Dalvin Cook. So I have got to give the Vikings the edge in this game. I think Justin Jefferson is just too good for anyone to stop. The Buccaneers quashed the Cowboys. Absolutely demolished them in week 1. It wasn't close. Dak Prescott got injured in the end of the game. I'm sitting here thinking, wow, the Cowboys are aiming for a top 10 pick. This was just depressing. They did not play well at all. They died that day. The Cowboys absolutely died. And then Cooper Rush stepped in and the Cowboys started playing amazing. And that continued on once Dak Prescott was healthy again. This Cowboys team is really good. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers kind of dropped off a cliff and they would not have won the division in any other division in the NFL. Which means that I have to give this game to the Cowboys. So now we're on to my projected divisional round. I've got to give the Chiefs the edge in this matchup. Like I said, the Chargers are a good team. They have a strong core and I think they'll continue to get better. But they are still haunted by injuries, terrible coaching in my opinion, and just the fact that that whole roster, especially Justin Herbert, has not played in the playoffs before. Meanwhile, this Chiefs team is really good. The whole thing, the coaches, obviously Andy Reid is an amazing coach. He has plenty of playoff experience, as well as Patrick Mahomes. And they don't have that many injuries either. They've gotten pretty lucky. So I have to give this game to the Chiefs. I would have a way better idea what would happen in this game if the game had gone on, Bills versus Bengals, in Week 17. But with Damar Hamlin's collapse, you can't really continue that game, which means we still don't really know what would have happened. The Bengals were winning 7-3, but it was really early into the game. You still have 5 minutes left in the first quarter. You're 10 minutes into the game. You can't define a 7-3 score by 10 minutes. So I still have to give the Bills the edge here. I think the Bills are really good. I think they should have gotten the bye, but obviously, again, couldn't play the game. And I think the Bengals are a good team, but I still think they're lacking on defense. And I worry about Joe Burrow behind that offensive line with the Bills' front seven going after him. So we will have to see, but I have to give it to the Bills. Couple weeks ago, the Cowboys actually beat the Eagles. But I do not think that will happen again. I think the Cowboys are a really good team, but I think the Eagles are just slightly better. I don't trust the Cowboys in the playoffs. They haven't proven that they can ever win in the playoffs. So sure, I'll give the game to the old Buccaneers with Tom Brady, who is 45. But I can't give them against the MVP candidate, Jalen Hurts. I still think the Eagles are lacking a bit. I don't think they're that amazing of a team because they had such an easy schedule. But I think the Cowboys are still slightly worse. Okay, I did just finish saying I don't think anyone can stop Justin Jefferson. But I think the 49ers will stop the Vikings. I'm not sure if they'll stop Justin Jefferson, but they have some good weapons of their own with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Even if it's Brock Purdy leading the charge, I think this 49ers offense is really good. I think this 49ers defense is absolutely amazing. Even if the secondary is not the best, Talanoa Hufanga, the second-year safety, can still play really well and might be able to lock up Justin Jefferson. We will see, but I've got to give the 49ers the edge. This is another rematch. The Bills actually played the Chiefs earlier this season and won, hence why they would have gotten the bye over the Chiefs had they played their Week 17 game. And I project the result to be the same. I have got to admit, when I was making these predictions, this was difficult for me to decide. These two teams are both really good. You've got two superstar quarterbacks. You've got Stephon Diggs. I think that's what really gives the Bills an edge. But you've got Travis Kelce on the other side. Dawson Knox can't compare to Travis Kelce. The defenses are both really good, but I think the Bills is slightly better despite the injury of Von Miller, and Mike Hyde is out, and now Damar Hamlin obviously is out as well. And I think the secondary of the Bills is still slightly better. I don't like the Chiefs secondary. I think they have a couple young players they could develop, but I don't think anyone's proven it yet, so I have to give the Bills the slightest edge. This is a really close game for me as well, because if Jimmy Garoppolo returns, I think the 49ers could win this game. I think they have a really good team. I think Kyle Shanahan is an amazing coach. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Brandon Ayuk are all great. Oh, and George Kittle, obviously. I may have not mentioned him earlier, but George Kittle, they're all great weapons. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo can truly utilize them against this Eagles defense. Despite it being great, I think the 49ers could take the Eagles down, who may have taken benefit to a weak schedule. But if Brock Purdy is playing this game, which I think he will at this rate, I can't pick the 49ers. I'm sorry. I love Brock Purdy. I think he's amazing. I think he could be the next Tom Brady. But it's his rookie season. He was Mr. Irrelevant. Can you really take him over a potential MVP candidate in Jalen Hurts? And the Eagles' defense is just so good. Again, it's a rookie. Even if he hasn't made any mistakes. Looks like a 10-year veteran so far. But I've got to think eventually he makes some mistake. I don't think he's elite. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's really elite like Jalen Hurts is. So I have to give the Eagles the edge here. So this is my projected Super Bowl matchup. Bills versus Eagles. I have to pick the Bills to win their first ever Super Bowl. Josh Allen would have now done something Jim Kelly was never able to do, despite making 4 consecutive Super Bowls. As I said earlier, I think that the Eagles got really lucky with an easy schedule. I still think they're a really good team, but they're just not quite up to par with the superstar Bills. An amazing defense, great receiver in Stephon Diggs. Great team all around. This team is great. Overall, this team, I think, will win the Super Bowl. Same team I was predicting from the very beginning of the season. I still think the Bills will win Super Bowl 58. Their first ever Super Bowl. But I have no idea what is going to happen in the wild card weekend. The NFL always turns out weird, so we will see. But for now, thanks for watching.